All right. So remember, episodic memory is what John Locke was talking about. Now, we've talked about this now for the last half an hour or so. Let's go a little bit further in this, into the next section here. The genesis of the self. So, how episodic memory contributes to the self. So, John Locke posited that the self is rooted in memory. Our memories create continuity in our identity, allowing us to view ourselves as the same person over time despite physical changes. Now, this is very interesting. How does this happen? Now, there's a lot of theories about this. There is some subjective sense, I can kind of talk about this a bit here. There's a subjective sense that I'm the same person that I was when I was 5 years old or 10 years old. Or, where does that come from? What is that? If the brain is developing and changing, and if the identity is fluid and not static, as what John Locke was stating before also, and plus he's got the tabula rasa theory. If that's the case, how is it that we have, at least subjectively, a sense that I'm the same person? The sense of that I'm the same person that I was yesterday, or day before yesterday, 1 year ago, 5 years ago. Where does that come from? Why is that even, how does that even develop? So John Locke's understanding of this is that this is rooted in our memory, that memories create continuity in our identity. Well, how do they do that? Why do they do that? How is it that memories create continuity? Well, we already know that the memories are based on experience. I was just explaining that they're stored inside the brain. They're chemically stored inside the brain, but then they are subjectively experienced in the mind. So if you were to differentiate brain and mind is our first person experience of memory. Let's call that the memories in the mind. The brain is holding the neurochemical linkages that are necessary for those experiences to come into the present consciousness. It's very interesting. And that goes back to the question of experience. So there's a lot of ideas that are tied together in this. So for example, if I'm saying that I can remember what happened yesterday, I can remember that, but I'm experiencing the recall. I can sit here and just remember, okay, yesterday I had this conversation. Yesterday we had the PTP program. Yesterday I woke up at this time, whatever. I can recall it, but am I recalling it without my individualized personal experience? No, I'm recalling it with the sense that, first of all, I'm recalling, and then there is the experience of the recall. And in that experience, there is the interconnectedness of that experience with many other experiences from, let's say, 8 a.m. yesterday till today. And when you pull all that together, this entire structure of memory, notice the word structure, because we've been talking about that, and you've, at least some of you have taken notes on that before, that the structure, which is out of those 6 points, right? The structure of the mind. So the entire memory system is structural. There's a structure behind it. There's a structure of it, in fact. And that structure is what John Locke is stating is creating personal identity. The sense of who I am is, I think he would, if he was alive today, he might say it's an emergent phenomena of that structure. It's an emergent phenomena. It's an epiphenomena. And the sense that I exist, I am. That is because all the memories have come together to form the epiphenomena that is the I. It is a emergent quality. That's what the neurological basis of identity would state. Now, there are other perspectives on this point. But in terms of our own brain, we know this very well. Things like amnesia, things like brain damage and all that, or problems with severe trauma, people have difficulty recalling, or there are significant changes in personality with brain damage, or with various different kinds of surgeries that may be done neurologically. Somebody goes onto the operating table, they wake up almost like a different person. There's cases like that. There's the famous example of Phineas Gage, where a steel rod had gone through the brain and he survived. That's the first example that is shown in any cognitive psychology or behavioral neuroscience book. You'll find that story in there. And his personality was radically different because of that accident. There's quite a bit of evidence neurologically to suggest that what we call identity and personality is an epiphenomena of the brain. But it could be much more than that. I mean, it doesn't explain the subjective experience. That goes into philosophy of mind and, the more subjective phenomenological perspectives in philosophy of mind. I know I'm using some heavy language here, but this is a technical presentation. So that's what this is for. And this is our time to do that. So the area of phenomenology is a study of experience. That if I'm experiencing what happened yesterday, let's analyze that, break it apart, and really try to unravel the experience itself. And when I do that, through my own narrative, through my own first-person description of it, that is called the study of phenomenology. That's how you pronounce it. And so that is where the subjective first-person experience comes into the picture, and then that leads us to things like self-inquiry and meditation, and it leads us to many other areas in terms of self-discovery, or is there some spiritual self or something like that? So that takes us in that direction. But in terms of what we're talking about right now, as the third entry in the Foundation's book, John Locke's statement regarding identity development has to do with episodic memory. It has to do with the structure of memory and the accumulation of memories together. They intersect, they interconnect together, and then they form personal identity. Now, how do they form personal identity? Because, remember, personal identity is also a construct. It is a construct. It's an idea. It's an idea inside the mind, after all, of researchers, that there is a consistent identity that is formed. It's a formation of identity. And from the formation of identity, there's the further construct of trait psychology. And from trait psychology, there's the development of personality itself. So personality is a much more evolved construct based on identity development. Again, you can get multiple PhDs in this subject, obviously. It's very, very intricate, but we want to keep it very straightforward. Although it is technical, there's a lot involved in it. I'm just trying to put it in the time that is available to us, right? Because you can it's very intricate. There's identity psychology, identity development, brain development. There's a development of memories. There is the neurological maturation, and then the sense of I that develops from childhood. All of that pulled together brings about certain type of identity, and then the ability to recall what is happening in one's life, what has happened within one's life, and then we can take that further in terms of the ability to recall without getting stuck in that recall, right? So that's the other point, that we can gain more awareness, gain more freedom, gain more wisdom, more emotional stability and balance, and all kinds of positive things can come about when we're able to dive into our memories and come back out of them, gaining more wisdom, more insight, more strength. Many people actually lose a lot of emotional strength as well as memory-oriented strength, the TEMDE, thought, emotion, memory, desire, energy, the 5 points that we've always talked about. They are hanging together within the present moment. They do not exist independently of each other. They are always together. And every kind of experience, whether it is the ability to recall, the ability to talk, the ability to think, the ability to feel, it is all possible because of energy. That's the neurological, neuropsychological energy within the brain, within the body. And without that, we couldn't do anything. There's no activity that can be done of any kind. So biologically, that energy comes from the sun. You can see how all this pulls together. You see, so the food we eat is carrying the energy of the sun, right? So that sun's energy is inside the whole body. And that is then dynamically active. The question here is about identity. The question here is specifically about the sense of consistent identity. That identity, the sense of who I am, seems to be consistent seems to be consistent over time. Christina, can you can you hear me now? Christina? Okay, good. So we can hear you now. Okay, good. So this is the mysterious question, and nobody has come to a final answer on this. As far as my own research goes on this point, there is no real final answer that anybody has come up with about what exactly is that sense of consistent sense of me. Like, think about it. I mean, Sachin here is 53 years old. I remember when I was in India, when I was 7 or 8 or 9, 10 years old. I have all these memories, but is that the same person as me right now? Is the me something completely different from that me at age 5 or age 10? Obviously, the brain is not the same. I mean, meaning the brain has matured. Memories have matured. They have developed. Experiences are there. So, but is there some element within the mind, or like a spiritual self or something, that is witnessing? And that is the Vedanta idea. That is the witnessing consciousness, if there is such a thing. But that's a matter of meditation, religious path, etc., to try to discover the subject that may be beyond the mind. Many philosophers, like John Searle, would not agree that there's anything beyond the mind. They are just neurological. They believe the brain mind is that's it. They don't want to introduce another idea that there's a soul. You see, so or Holy Ghost or Spirit or God or any of those things. So anyway, that's that. I mean, that whole area we're covering Thursday evening. Here we're looking at the research in psychology and in related areas that is foundational in terms of the question about the self, like who am I? What is the self? And then eventually, what is self-mastery? That is the more evolved concept that we are trying to probe into. If you have any comments, it's already 7:45. So Christina, Chetna, and Shuparna, if you have any comments, we'd love to hear. I mean, I can keep talking about this, and I don't want to overcomplicate this or introduce too much material. I mean, this is like all the stuff that I live for, this stuff, but it can become just a fuzz, and we don't want that to happen. We want to be able to understand a few ideas, and let's really talk about them, probe them. What is your reflection on that? And then that can be very helpful for us to unravel the mysteries of the self. So anything you'd like to say?